My next guest is one of the world's leading historians whose works helped shape current geopolitical and economic events and put them within their broader historical context. Now, given everything that's going on in the world at the moment, this is needed now more than ever. He's published over 16 books, along with serving as a senior fellow at several universities and institutions. He'll also be in Australia next month. He'll speak at the annual, or he'll give, beg your pardon, the annual Robert Menzies Institute oration and join them for the dinner. I'm on the board there. I'll declare that right now. Looking forward to his company, but I'm pleased he's joining us now. Sir Neil Ferguson, welcome to the program. Thank you for your time. I've got to get your reaction to the assassination over the weekend of the Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah. It's already a tinderbox in the region. What do you think this means in the short to medium term?
Well, I'm rather reminded of that scene in The Godfather when Al Pacino is having his child christened and all his enemies are meanwhile being taken out. Bibi Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, has shown himself to be a Michael Corleone-like figure. Even as he was delivering his speech to the United Nations General Assembly, he knew that the Israeli Air Force was on its way to take out Nasrallah with a pinpoint accurate airstrike in Beirut. And this is just one of a succession of Hezbollah commanders that the Israelis have managed to assassinate in the last couple of weeks. It's a remarkable achievement coming on top of course, the great act of sabotage that's killed or wounded so many Hezbollah operatives when their pagers exploded. So just as we approach the anniversary of the appalling events of October 7th last year, we're seeing Israel striking back in a way that can only chill the blood, not only of Hezbollah supporters and Hamas supporters, but also, of course, of the Iranian government that sponsors all these terrorist organizations.
One of the things you are always reminded of history is everything has happened before, in a sense, at least in the broad thematics. Help us understand as we get towards the October 7 anniversary, how on earth did the West get in the situation where particularly our young people are embracing these terrorist ideologies? They're marching in the street. We saw in Australia, I don't know if you caught up over the weekend, people marching with the Hezbollah flag and idolising Nasrallah with photographs that you'd see in these processions on a Middle Eastern street occurring in Australia. What's happening with our young people in particular?
And it's not only in Australia. We've seen on American campuses demonstrations in support not just of the Palestinians, but of terrorist organizations such as Hamas. I think it's partly that universities have been teaching an extraordinarily skewed ideological leftist account of history. In this account, Israel is engaged in, quote, settler colonialism and is somehow the heir of Western imperialism, which is, of course, completely at odds with reality, since the State of Israel was founded in opposition to the British Empire as a result of a campaign of disobedience and indeed of terrorism against the British forces in the Mandate of Palestine. So young people are just poorly educated. They forget that almost exactly 50 years ago, there was another surprise attack on Israel. That was, of course, the Yom Kippur War of October 1973. And then, as now, Israel struck back. The real story of Israel is that of an independent state founded to give the Jewish people a nation state. And it has spent its entire history fighting wars to defend itself against hostile neighbors. That's the real history that, unfortunately, too many young people in the Western world, in the English-speaking world, seem unaware of.
Has the fight in the Middle East distracted us, do you think, from the fight against Russia and Ukraine?
I think to some extent, Petra, it has. I remember that just immediately after the October 7th attacks last year, a great media rush occurred from Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and media attention towards the Ukraine crisis diminished speedily thereafter. In reality, of course, the war in Ukraine has only escalated. Russia has increased its firepower and its manpower. Ukraine is struggling to keep pace. Not only that, but Russia is able to call in support from China, from Iran, and from North Korea. And their support is allowing Russia greatly to increase its firepower. Unfortunately, Ukraine's Western allies are not matching this axis of evil, if you will, on anything like the same scale. So the reality is that Ukraine is slowly and painfully losing this war. That is an impression I brought back from a trip to Kyiv just 2 weeks ago. And it frustrates me intensely that people in Washington, D.C., in London, in Paris, in Brussels, and above all, perhaps in Berlin, don't seem aware that if we carry on down our present trajectory, we're going to be confronted with the disaster in Ukraine, where Russia will actually grind out, through brutal attrition, a victory.
Let's go to the US election, because I watch your Twitter feed. You referred to the Harris campaign as being vacuous. I watched that Oprah interview. Hard to disagree with that point. So much of the pitch is about who she is, or at least a curated image of who she is. You know, first black woman or first woman of colour, daughter of immigrants, you know, that middle class upbringing that she bangs on about, you know, on goes the list. Is that going to be enough, given we're so close to polling day and some states have already started their ballots moving? Will that be enough to get her over the line? Or do you think Americans are growing tired of identity politics?
Well, I would say that this election is still far too close to call. It's a coin toss. It's going to come down, I think, to the decisions of a relatively small number of voters in a small number of counties and a small number of states. Focus on Pennsylvania. Look at some of those counties that flipped from Trump in 2016 to Biden in 2020. I don't think that the people in those counties, often Rust Belt towns, are as particularly enamored of Kamala Harris's message. In the summer, I likened it to Barbie versus Oppenheimer, because the Kamala Harris campaign was a sort of Barbie movie of vibes and joy. Donald Trump, meanwhile, was giving extremely doom-laden interviews to Elon Musk and others about the danger of World War III. But my sense is that joy and vibes are not really the name of the game in the critical battleground states and counties. And I still don't think that Kamala Harris has made a success of persuading American voters in those swing states that she stands for something other than getting to the top of the greasy pole. Her positions on almost every issue have flipped over the last few years. And I think many Americans suspect that she's not much more than a political opportunist. They know Donald Trump and they know his flaws. They know them because they hear about them every other day from the mainstream media. But if you put a gun against my head, which I hope you won't, and ask me to make a prediction, I would say that Donald Trump is going to surprise the elites as he did in 2016, and as he only failed to do in 2020 because of the huge disruption caused by the COVID pandemic.
I'll leave it there. I look forward to your company very soon here in Australia. So, Neil Ferguson, thank you for your time.